Welcome, everyone, to the Inclusion Podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Costin.
And I'm Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzak. We're so glad you're here as we explore all things inclusion.
So whether you're a school leader, an educator, a parent, or simply passionate about inclusion, this podcast is for you.
In each episode, we go beyond the usual conversations, diving into what truly makes inclusive education work.
Together, let's make a difference, one conversation at a time. Here we go. Welcome, everyone. Today's episode is so cool because it's about 5 small moves that you can use to make a big impact in changing your school culture. So today, I'm hoping everybody puts on sort of a creative hat and starts to think about this question: how can I improve school culture and make it more inclusive?
Yeah, and that, Julie, when we were prepping for this episode, I tried to put on my creativity hat, which is like hard to find sometimes, because I was like, whew, that's like when people say change mindsets, it's even bigger than that.
It
So
is.
I was thinking about our definition of inclusive education and our work where we always say, you got to work on the mindset, the heart set, and the skill set. And so then I thought, well, where does culture come in? So tell me a little bit more about like what you were hoping when we put on our creativity hat. What would we be fussing with? What would we be trying to,
Fix.
fix, move, shake up?
I would say, like, in a really energetic way, the feel. So
Yeah.
the feel of it. So from when you walk into the doors, obviously, Christy, you well know that everyone's nervous system is taking in all the input and making sense of all the input. And my point is, how do you help our learners, our parents, our teachers, as they walk into the school, have a feel that feels good to their nervous system and feels comforting and supportive and exciting and welcoming and all the things you want for your school culture to be?
And so like, I love that word feels because it's something that's maybe below the threshold of our awareness as well as part of our awareness. It kind of goes hand in hand. And so sometimes if we think about shifting mindsets or, where is our heart in this work, or do we have the competencies and confidence? Maybe we haven't like thought about how those all come together, or how does it feel when this practice or this policy is actually put into the world. So let's think, friends, about how we can take any of these 5 moves. Julie and I hit on a couple, maybe all 5, but you can get all 5 at inclusiveschooling.com/download 54. And we're going to go through sort of some systematic ways that you can take real action to change how it feels, and that we're now really embodying inclusive education at all levels.
Yeah. And I think, Christy, I really love that you said, culture feels big. Like changing culture seems like really enormous. And if it can help your nervous system, listener, we're talking about small moves that have a big impact. And so we're going to talk about building culture one moment at a time, and just these 5 moves that make everything a little bit better in your school. So I want to start with this school district that I will not name, but it was a school that I worked with for many years. And when the parents and the kids pulled up to the building, I think, let's just imagine the school started at 8 o'clock on the dot. At 8:01, someone put a big sandwich board out right where the cars are, and it said, "You are late."
Yeah.
And there was a
that.
there was a clock on it. And I, had to say, "Whoa, tell me about that." And it's like, "Oh, we're really struggling." So the intent behind it is really good. We're really struggling to get families to school on time, to get kids in the classroom on time, to really make sure that we're maximizing those learning minutes, right? Yes, 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 yes. And let's just take this particular vibe or feel. For that first second when you walk in to see "you are late" on a sandwich board isn't going to do what you want it to do. And so we spent just 5 minutes. So we did a 5-minute problem solving with the principal, the front desk person. She's amazing. A few other people, director of special ed, and a few other people. And I said, let's just do a 5-minute problem solving. What are you trying to solve? And then how can we make this so much better? They ended up right away deciding that they were going to change the sign to welcome. We're so glad you're here. And they just came up with a few other changes. They had greeters in the morning, and they had someone who was assigned, instead of just the bus duty, to welcome each kid by name as they came in. Those couple moves changed the field greatly. And you're probably not surprised, Christy, and I'm certain none of our listeners are surprised that it had a dramatic impact on start time and student attendance, because the first experience they had was warm and welcoming as they walked in the door.
Well, I think there's at least two more things that, again, speaking to our nervous system, not only, I don't even care so much that they improved their goal of arrival time, which is great.
Yeah.
But think about how much more ready, like I can only imagine myself as a learner, especially if I wasn't driving at the time.
Right.
And I had to rely on the bus being on time and or my parents dropping me off on time because we lived out in the country. So I couldn't like take my bike or walk or something like that. Like I can't imagine the shame I would have felt seeing that I was late. I probably couldn't have learned at least, I would say, half the day. Like my nervous system would have been so dysregulated just by seeing that at any age. And I would have picked up on that so early.
That's right. And to see it in the font size of, I don't even know the size of the font of this particular sign, but Christy, in a way, becomes, indelible on your mind or soul. Like the first move of my day, I'm already behind. I've already screwed up. I'm already in trouble, and people are already mad at me.
Yeah.
And so many of you have learners with anxiety, and we've got to be so much more thoughtful about the messages. Now, I'm certain that no one listening has a "you are late" sign, but the goal is to find those places or spaces in your school and do problem-solving sessions around those issues to make things more warm and more welcoming.
And I think, Julie, it's like what you're inviting us to do is uncover maybe some of our hidden biases or things that don't bother us, but we didn't think about that they might bother someone else. So, in my own work about dismantling the negative effects of the white dominant culture is the obsession with clock time. So that could be something where a group could say, hey, not all of our students perceive time, not all of our families work around clock time the way that school is structured. How can we even take it a step further to allow more flexibility with what we mean by on time? Because I think the dominant culture would be very wedded to clock time and very concerned about the consequences of not being on time.
So, Christy, you're inviting us to think way beyond the story to say, okay, great, you got everybody to show up on time and with a regulated nervous system or a more regulated nervous system.
Right.
Okay, but what does on time look like for our families? And what are all sorts of ways to conceptualize time? I think that's such a powerful thing to spend time thinking of. And I'll use a mini example.
Okay.
The mini example I have is, Christy, whenever you and I meet, I'm someone who has ADHD and significant time blindness. So I will roll in late, usually to the meeting, and I usually will have a good
Late,
story.
according to me.
Correct. And I'll usually have a good story to tell, and I want to talk about our breakfast that I had, and I want to tell, a few jokes, and then I want to get started. And Christy's already getting angry because I'm late to begin with, and I definitely wasn't ready to start on time and on quote time. And so we just changed this idea to be like, hey, on time for us is 10 minutes either way. So if Christy shows up 10 minutes early to the meeting, cool, then she has 10 minutes to get herself ready. If I show up 10 minutes late, I'm still quote unquote on time. And we're just having a very different understanding of time. Now, Christy said it's a white dominant culture that obsesses about time. And I would say that is true. So you want to think about cultural differences around time. You want to think about ability differences around time, and maybe just human differences around time.
Well, and sorry, Julie, but now I have to say, in reflection, we always say that disability is a form of human diversity and that inclusion benefits everyone. But here's an example where the quote unquote problem was because of your ADHD.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that I come to meetings much more neurologically neutral, meaning I'm ready to like be a little social or a little bit off task or not 100% ready. Like I don't feel like you're expecting that of me either, which has given me more freedom. So it's like I'm benefiting even though we thought the accommodation was for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so in all these examples, these mini examples and big examples, that's exactly what we want you to do is just look at a policy, an idea, a sign, a person who's greeting, any of those kinds of things and say, how could we make this even better for a more diverse group of humans who will be walking in this door or past this sign or et cetera, right? So how do we make our schools more inclusive?
Great. So we're giving you 5 ideas and you're seeing how we're taking what's kind of simple on your download, which is at inclusiveschooling.com/download 54 and sort of taking it to the next level and then to the next level and then to the next level. Because becoming truly inclusive, having that culture requires not just changing the font or changing the verbiage, but changing the actual feel. And that sometimes means that we have to dismantle things that are broader or more deeply embedded than just what we do in this building. All right, JC, pick the next one.
Okay, I'm going to jump to the 5th one, which is create connection moments. And the story that we wanted to use for this one was a 7th grade team that we were working with. And the problem around the culture was in the cafeteria. And the problem, quote unquote, within the cafeteria was that kids with disabilities were attending classes together and then also attending lunch together. And they were these very grouped classes of kids all around the cafeteria, which is okay. However, we started to think about what would it take or look like to make things more inclusive and give kids more opportunities to participate or choose where to sit beyond their typical places to sit. So this team in this 5-minute problem solving came up with this quick and easy table tent idea. And Christy, what you just said, I'm just excited to tie it in. So what happened with the table tent idea is that one of the social workers said, let's come up with all these options, places for kids to sit based on their interests. And so what happened? She came up with 25 different table interests and put them all around, and kids were to choose if they wanted to sit at those places or not. Well, this social worker didn't necessarily have the best ideas or most exciting or interesting ideas for table tent. So kids right away were like, this is stupid. And they sat in their same spots and they kind of pushed the table tents aside and nothing happened. So then we had to talk to the kids and say, oh, hey, these table tents were supposed to be. And they said, oh, great. Well, let us come up with the ideas. Let us come up with the interests because we have lots of interests that we'd love to think about or talk about. But your ideas aren't, it was a 50-year-old social worker who didn't have the real vibe of the 7th grade mind, right? And so then we just put a quick committee of kids together. They came up with all these ideas. I want to cry when I think about one particular student, so I'll just quickly share. It's a student with autism who had before been sitting by himself every single lunch. And he saw that there was a chess table. And he sat at the chess table. And then he asked if they could bring the chessboard to lunch. And then they started to have a chess tournament. And this kid, everything about his lunch experience changed because he got to be involved in an interest area with a bunch of kids who were also interested in chess. And so for me, that was like this moment of just changing policies, changing ideas, and switching it up a little bit can have an incredibly powerful impact for specific students.
Yeah, I got off on a little tangent on my mind, but it's about table tents. Is that what they're called? They sound
table
funny
tents
in my head all of a sudden. But I love how that story came full circle and showed how the smallest of things make the biggest of impact. And I was just reflecting, Julie, the other night, we hosted that murder mystery dinner at our house.
Yeah.
And, it was all of my West Coast swing friends, but there's a core group of us we're a trio. And we had table tent where our names are. They called us that too, right? When you put your names on them. And so one of my friends was the conductor of the whole thing. And so she knew where everybody had to be and all this stuff. So the other part of the trio, she and I were like, I wonder where we're sitting. I hope we're sitting together. I hope we're sitting next to. And so we were so excited that we were sitting right next to the other. So we made a trio on one table.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm almost 55. They're quite a bit younger than me, but they're in their 30s. But it was like, we were so excited that we got to sit together.
Yeah.
And so it was like kind of that lunch experience. It wasn't based on interest of topics, but it was like, I just remember how many times I was separated from the people I was most interested in learning and working with because maybe we were going to be too chatty or off topic or too cliquish. But even at 55, my nervous system needed that interest-based friendship for the activity. So kind of a tangent, but I just thought, oh my gosh, I just had that experience like 2 nights ago.
That's right. And how powerful that experience was for you in the moment. And it was a social event and it was, all those kinds of things. And now think about if you're a 7th grader, how it is to get your nervous system re-regulated and just get yourself comfortable again at lunchtime so you can go back into the day and keep going throughout your day. So, today as we wrap up this episode, we wanted to remind you that our 5 moves for you in this particular handout. And we just want to leave you with this thought, which is like shifting culture doesn't have to be this huge initiative. It can be something small like a sandwich board or a sign or a smile from the front desk person or a table tent in the cafeteria. It's really small moves done consistently that send the message that everyone belongs here. And I will say, based on the lunch example, don't forget to include kids in decisions about what is and what isn't working. And don't forget to include kids in making things better. Thank you for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe and catch up on past episodes where we share valuable insights, straight talk, and practical steps to challenge outdated special education practices. You can find every episode with the show notes at inclusiveschooling.com/inclusion-podcast to build more inclusive schools together.